Howdy, welcome back to Out of Spec Testing. This is our testing channel where we are now putting our Hogback driver's assistance videos. We are at the Hogback area. That's what these geological formations are called, hogbacks. That's why I named this test that. But we are taking the 2025, I think, might be 24, but it's the new Rivian R1T, Generation 2 R1. And we are testing its driver's assistance test. So Rivian Autonomy Platform Plus is like the name of the driver's assistance suite, I guess, but highway assist is what we're really testing today. So that's what we are going up I-70 towards Idaho Springs, really just west on I-70. We're here near Golden, Colorado, and then we come back. It's like a 30-ish mile loop, but it's very aggressive. A lot of elevation gain and descent, a lot of corners. It's like the most treacherous section of actual highway in the country. We do that intentionally because a lot of systems, including Rivian's, are pre-mapped and only work on major highways. That is my big beef with this system. It seems like it's so capable, yet I can't use it on so many huge B roads, like 2-lane highways and stuff, where a Honda Civic can do its own system and do lane centering. Whereas Rivian has all this hardware, and I'm sure it's coming. They work on software updates. In fact, there's an update coming soon that should help the system even more. We'll talk about that in a little bit, but they haven't yet. So Rivian is still stuck like they were 2 years ago on pre-mapped highways. It's a pretty good system, not perfect, but let's see how it does in our standardized test. Okay, I'll keep talking. As far as the hardware, there is a bunch of cameras around the truck. We're gonna be very careful. There's a lot of ice around here, but I-70 is clear. That's the important thing. But there's like, I don't remember how many, like 11. I mean, there's like 3 up front, 3 on each mirror, 1 in the front and below the grill, 2 in the back. There's like maybe 13 cameras. I don't know. A huge sensor suite in the Rivian. You got proximity sensors here. I believe there's even radar somewhere hidden. So it has the hardware capability for future-proofed autonomy, and that really excites me. But there's not much else to say. I mean, this is the tri-motor in forest green, beautiful truck. I'm a huge fan of Rivian design language. Not everyone loves these pill-looking light things, but I'm a big fan. The truck is dirty, it is winter, but I made sure all the cameras are perfectly clean, so it should not affect the test. So, it's really cold. Let's get in the car and go for a ride. Welcome to the gorgeous interior of the truck and my co-host, Jess. She's helping me film today, and this is our tracking spreadsheet. So we tried to do kind of an evaluative performance of every car here. So looking at this car, scoring it is pretty basic. So capacitive wheel, we give a lot of points for that. We may adjust the scoring. I know people have mentioned that recently. It's just back when we made this is kind of how much we weighted these things. So we give a lot of points for a capacitive wheel because that's just a much better driving experience in my opinion, especially if you have to touch the wheel. People noted in a recent FSD video that we didn't have to touch the wheel, so why is it weighted so much? Valid points. There is no driver safety eye tracking to speak of. The gauge cluster will show the cars around, which is cool, but lane centering only works on pre-map, so that kind of deducts the points from the capacitive wheel, because that's a huge markdown. That's such a bummer in a car like this, like I said. Automatic functions. I don't know if any of these have changed. We'll of course adapt them if we find out in the test, but it does not, as of the last Rivian we tested, adapt to speed limits, doesn't let you do a speed limit offset. There's no adaptive system aggressiveness based on driving mode. I'll be testing that as well. Is it separate from the driving mode? That would be cool, but I don't see that either. And then automatic lane changing is a new thing since we last tested Rivian in this test. So that is 5 more points. It does not do it by itself though. You have to toggle it, so it doesn't get even more points, and it does not return to the right lane, which is a bit disappointing, but again, it's not a fully automated system. The driver unresponsive test is something we typically do, but with this being limited to pre-mapped highways, there's no way I can safely test it. There's simply no empty highway corridor right now to see what happens if I was an unresponsive driver and the car just stops moving. So I will contact Rivian and see what it's programmed to do, and if they will give us the points, then, or if they tell us what it'll do, then we'll give them the points. Easy as that. So if you guys recall, I actually reached out to Lucid during the Lucid Hogback Challenge because that car also wouldn't do the driver unresponsive situations without a pre-mapped road, and there was no safe space to do it. They never replied. But I reached out to Rivian in the same manner, and they replied instantly. In fact, I was on the phone with the head of autonomy at Rivian before I even got home from doing this test. So for the unresponsive driver test, they confirmed that the truck does come to a stop safely with lane centering still active. As of the day I contacted them, the hazard lights do now come on when you come to a stop, which is huge and important. And while they didn't have that before, but I'm sure this is a very edge case test. I get it. So I'm still giving them the points, but they don't get any points for interior cabin lights. Those don't come on. The doors do stay locked. What do you guys think is safest? Having the doors locked for safety from people trying to get in, or unlocked for the paramedics or whatever to get there and help as soon as possible? Let's jump back into the video and stay tuned for the end when I give Rivian's thoughts and plans for the future. So during the test, we'll be deducting points for driving takeovers, disengagements, etc. And yeah, just kind of evaluate the system. Here's the settings, in case anyone wants to know, for the Rivian Autonomy Platform Plus. There is, of course, adaptive cruise control, even if it's not pre-mapped. That is nice. Forward collision warning, automatic emergency braking. This lane change on command is a new thing, really cool animation as well. Lane departure stuff. Lane keeping assist is a feature, but again, no lane centering unless you're pre-mapped. Otherwise, parking, automatic cameras, regenerative braking assist. If it's too cold, it'll help you with the regen. So pretty basic settings, nothing really intense or dramatic, nothing like adapting to speed limits or system aggressiveness. They didn't go deep into the weeds. Those would be things I'd love to see added, but maybe future updates. This is, again, a car where they do a lot of updating over the air. We'll look at the software version. Where would that be here? Updates. So we are at 2024.47.30, and in the future, you'll see more updates here. And a new update coming soon is automatic turn signal turning off when you change lanes. That'll be awesome. Tesla's done that for a long time. Looking forward to seeing Rivian jump into that. So without further ado, let's go jump into the test and see how it does. Okay, setting off in the tri-motor. Lots of power on tap, which is not, of course, useful in this test, but it's useful for the typical EV wow factor for everyone checking this thing out. This is also the first Rivian Jess has really experienced. What do you think?
I love the interior. I had the opportunity to drive it around for a little bit the other day. The driving experience is great. It feels, I mean, I think a lot of people compare the Rivian brand to the 4Runner, which I have. And so I think putting these two driving experiences side by side, the Rivian is far superior. I did have some things to say about the wind noise.
Which you might experience on this drive.
Understandably, it was a very windy day.
Yeah.
So.
Well, we are now going to jump on I-70. Hopefully not too much sun glare. That's always a concern, but it seems like most cars I've tested with sun glare weren't really fazed by it. So here's to hoping that's the same with Rivian. Going to... Actually, I'll just keep our route in there because we're going back there eventually anyways. So, big truck here. We'll let them go by. No one's next to them. I don't know why they didn't get over. So, okay. Getting up to speed and hopefully getting on the system ASAP. I do have it in the just general all-purpose mode. There we go. System is engaging. Highway assist is active. Stay attentive.
So does it prompt you when it's ready to be engaged?
So once you want to engage it, that's when, and it lets you, that's when there is a double tap thing, which used to be tap down. Now with the new Rivian, it's tap towards you with the right stalk. That's how you engage the system. So once we're past this little construction zone, we will try to initiate an automatic lane change because we are going quite slow right now. But the system, once it told me we were on a pre-mapped section, it got on the system just fine, no problems. And even with some of the sun glare, no problems yet. I personally have high hopes for the system. Like I said, I already complained aggressively about how it's only pre-mapped, but as long as it works really well on pre-mapped, I'll give it kind of a pass. I also give it a pass because I really just enjoy driving this truck. I mean, you didn't even use the driver's assistance when you were driving it because...
I don't think it came on. So I was on a toll road, a 2-lane toll road yesterday. I guess you could say it's a highway.
I know it doesn't prompt you. It just has a little thing up here that you probably didn't see.
Yeah.
But wow, these trucks really go slow. So we'll try to get around it here. This is technically like a passing discouraged zone, but it's not illegal. There was a lot of comments on our FSD video, and that was the last video we did together on this, and just in general on the Hogback. And FSD blew everyone's minds. But let's see, we are now approaching a passing zone. It's telling me no passing yet, and now it's telling me it will pass, and now it's going for the pass. It speeds up on overtake. So that is one thing I'd like you to put in the editor's input.
Yeah.
Speed up on overtake. I'll have to look at the wording, but we've given every car 1 or 2 points. Just put 1 for now, but I'll double check. But every car that speeds up as soon as the turn signal is put, or the pass in this case was initiated, that's always awesome. You don't want to be that person that like waits till you're in the next lane, then speeds up, and then everyone behind you is angry.
Well,
so,
if you have a 4Runner, you can't help it.
Right. If you're in a 4Runner on this road, then you are probably going 40 miles an hour. Now I'm going to do an automatic lane change to the side. This is phenomenal. This lane changing, the graphics are really cool. I'm hoping this GoPro catches some of the graphics, but it's hard to see. But it works so well. Now we're coming up on an exit. It did not take it, didn't even try. That's always good to see as well. So yeah, I'm a big fan of once Rivian added the lane changing. Now, they're not the only car that does that. Many other cars do nowadays, notably the Hyundai, Kia, Genesis, the EGMP cars from the Koreans. They have automatic lane changing, but it's practically useless because you have to have your hand on the wheel the entire time, in which case, why don't I just do the lane change myself? Because it's so finicky and persnickety and all those weird words. Going to jump into the lane again because I see a truck way up ahead going very slow, so we're just going to preemptively get over. And it's pretty cool when you are trying to do a lane change maneuver. The blind spot cameras come up, which are very good in this Generation 2. I'll have to show Jess Kyle's Rivian because the Generation 1 cameras are so bad, and now they are so good. So the blind spot cameras are actually really great, and it highlights the camera in red around the edges when there is someone in your actual blind spot, which is pretty cool. So popping back over.
So if you were to initiate a lane change and there was a car in your blind spot or too close, does the car wait it out?
Yep.
How does that react? How does the car react?
So it'll just wait it out until the coast is clear. I haven't tried if it was like, I haven't tried in a case where the coast is never clear with like completely blocked up traffic. People have always let me in eventually, which is nice. So
that's Colorado for you.
Yeah, Colorado is just, drivers are nice, you know. We were in LA recently filming the Honda cars, and there was just not as many nice drivers, I'll just say it that way. But so far so good. So I guess back to what I was saying about high expectations. Kyle's truck was the first Rivian and the only Rivian we've run in this test thus far. It was one of the first cars we ever tested, and it was so good. Like, there was one intervention, which it was first place until we just tested FSD. So now we had FSD in my Tesla, which had 0 interventions, flawless. Every other automaker should watch that and use that as the benchmark for driver's assistance. But in Kyle's Rivian, it was almost flawless. I don't remember where that was. I should go back and look at the footage to find out where it failed. But there's one case where Kyle had to take over. And that, like I said, blew our minds. If it's a really good system, I'll give it a bit of a pass for being being pre-mapped, but not much of a pass. I do also want to say I love how little it prompts you. Some cars that have like that require torque input on the wheel or their capacitive wheel. Some cars prompt you every 2 seconds. Even Tesla sometimes is egregious and aggressive with their warnings. I think I should put that in another editor's input. I just love how, I guess, few nags, or less often on the nags. I don't know what to word that, but I definitely want to give that a point, because that is really nice, and not every car is built the same with that regard. So we're now stuck behind what looks like a pretty bomb food truck. So I kind of want to follow him to see where he's going, but we probably will pass. So I'll go ahead and initiate a pass.
Okay, so there's a car there right next to us. And yeah, I do appreciate the graphics. It's telling you it wasn't ready, and then it projects where the car is going to move into.
And as you saw in the beginning, we give points for showing other cars around you on the display. That's just nice to know what the car sees, because I can see everything. Hopefully the car can see everything it needs to, but just it telling you what it sees and also what it's latched onto. So it highlights the vehicle in blue that it's like tracking, which right now is the car way ahead of us. For a while it was the food truck, which is cool. That little animation makes the food truck look kind of like a Rivian truck or van thing, which is fun. So once we get around that, we will jump back into the right lane. But so far, genuinely fantastic. It gives the right amount of not nagging you, and it's felt very confidence inspiring. That's one of those things with this test, and why we have to have our personal opinion. Like, it's one thing to give it the official points, but it's also like, we have cars that technically stay in the lane, but they'll like do some ping-ponging, they'll do some like turning a little bit of input and then straight, a little bit of input straight, and they technically stay in the lines, but they feel like robots, and they're terrifying, and people behind you will think you're drunk. So I do love that this does feel very human-like. It's another gauge as to get the input from your passenger. I mean, if the passenger feels like you're driving but you're not, that's a huge win for the system.
Yeah, I mean, I have to say it does feel more rigid than Tesla. I will say also, from a speed perspective, we've stayed exactly at the speed limit. Now, I know Tesla FSD offers the 3-driver kind of speed profiles.
And even, but even some other cars, like, if they have the speed limit max, they will follow that rigidly. But even some cars that claim to follow it rigidly will like drop up or down a mile or two an hour, sometimes based around hills, which is why partially we test this in the hills, because we want to see when it does that. Rivian, you're right, is rigid. They're Andreas would approve. They're German about this. They're just like, we shall not go over 65, which is funny because the actual GPS speed is a bit, I think, slower. So even though it says 65, we're actually doing, I think, 64 last time I checked. It's about 1 mile an hour slower, which is good. Like, you want it to be slower rather than faster.
But I think in keeping that speed so rigidly, it does feel less like someone's driving, and that's for better or worse. Like, I think different people prefer, I don't know, different passenger experiences. For this, to me, like, it just feels like I'm on a train, like we're going one exact speed, whether it's downhill or uphill. Typically, if you have a person driving, right, you're going a little faster on the downhill, you're slowing down on the uphill. And that to me feels more natural. For some reason, going the one speed, like, I can tell it just doesn't feel like how this drive normally feels. And the 100 times that I've done it in a gas car.
Us Coloradoans have done this drive many times, and now I've done it in so many EVs. I tried to overtake this food truck, and then they sped up. That's just such a common thing, isn't it? But we do like to stay in the right lane when possible, because we want to partially test, will these cars try to veer off and take an exit? You know, it kind of depends how they're programmed to track the lanes. So if they really are rigid about the lanes, sometimes when one lane starts to exit the highway because it's literally leading to an off-ramp, will the car start to follow that and freak out? I don't think it will, honestly, but that's partially why we want to stay in the right lane, just to see how it handles those edge cases, pun intended. I also want to do another test. When the wheel prompts me to touch it, I'm going to try a non-capacitive part just to see how much torque it requires for the car to know that you're there. Like, let's say you're wearing gloves that have no capacitive reading on them. By the way, we just passed an exit that some cars would try to take, and this one was flawless. Such a good system. So, looks like they're getting some weather out here in the mountains. We'll see how the rest of this route looks, but so far it's clear. But it is hard to do some of our testing in deep winter. So, still hasn't prompted me for anything. I love that. I gave it points for that. But now I want to test something. Okay, keep your hands on the wheel. So, that's amazing. Very little torque needed to actually tell the car that you're there. Notably, some other cars require almost a dangerous amount of torque, I would say. So I would like to add a point there. Little torque input needed. So here we say, take control of the vehicle, road information unavailable. This is what I was afraid of. This is noting that it is about to become unpre-mapped, or we might have already passed an unpre-mapped, but it's still lane centering, which tells me it has the tech to do it. It just won't do it. But I'm going to ignore that for now and see what happens. Oh. Truck. So if you ignore that for a while, it says truck assist ending.
And it slowed down pretty significantly there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that would be, I guess, a disengagement with warning. Yeah. So one of those. And yeah, that's just the worst part of these systems. Lucid had the same issue in the same area, and it actually took a long time before I could re-enable it on the Lucid. And that's just the problem with pre-mapped is construction's always happening, especially here in Colorado. And if you're limited to pre-mapping your highway routes, then as soon as any construction affects the route, you have to go back and remap it, and that just takes time, and apparently no one's done it here yet. So I'm still waiting to re-enable the system. It still hasn't prompted me that it's available. So I still have to manually drive. That is frustrating.
That's a bummer.
And that is just, especially because this is like a part of the route where you really want to see how capable this thing is.
Yeah. So. And I think to note too, like there is construction happening to the left of us, but where these lanes are, and correct me in the comments if I'm wrong, Coloradans, but I believe these two lanes have been the same for quite some time. It's really just the median that's getting worked on.
Yeah.
So there really shouldn't be much of an issue.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, presuming the pre-mapping isn't decades old.
Yeah. So we'll see how this unfolds, but we still haven't been able to lock back on. But the Lucid did the exact same thing in the exact same place, and it also took a bit before it told me the system was once again available. It'll be really interesting to see if the other route has the same problem, the other direction. Because the Lucid, I think, was only this way where it was really rough, and then going back, it sometimes disengaged, sometimes engaged just fine.
So do you know if the car companies themselves own the pre-mapping technology, or do they outsource that to a third party?
That's a great question. I'll see if I can find that answer, and if I do, it'll be on the screen, because I'm really curious. I do think that some companies outsource it. I don't know to who, or I don't know if they'll disclose it. But I do think I'd be highly surprised if Rivian themselves were doing the actual mapping. They're a smaller company. GM maybe outsources, but Lucid and Rivian, I don't know who they use to do their mapping.
Yeah, but, I mean, I would guess if they have similar issues in similar areas, it could be, right, the third parties.
Yep.
Pre-mapping, I don't want to say fault, but their oversight, I guess, and not updating it frequently enough for the cars or the companies that use it.
Yeah, and I'll say this construction has been like this for a long time. Not 2 years, that's when we tested Kyle's, and Kyle's handled this perfectly. But for a long time, and they still haven't done it pre-map. So whoever they are outsourcing, maybe they should reconsider, because that's not great. Or, like I said at the beginning, just don't limit it to pre-mapped. I know you have the hardware, Rivian. You have way more cameras than Tesla, plus the sensor redundancy, which a lot of people, are debating about whether too many sensors, is too many, like, is Tesla going vision only the right way or the wrong way? You know, Lucid even has LiDAR, and they're still limited to pre-mapped. So I don't know. So far, it hasn't proven to me that more sensors is better, because you're clearly doing less with more sensors. But like we said, that could improve. I guess while I'm driving manually, I can point out that when I do a lane change, the turn signal does not auto cancel like a Tesla would. So I have to then cancel it. A way to get around that is to just do the tap turn instead of like a full press of it. But with the new update coming out, literally maybe this week, they will have automatic cancellation. So we are now turning around. That was literally like a couple miles of no functionality, which is terrible, actually. So honestly, in the editor's input, we're going to give a -5 for pre-mapped failure, because that's literally the only way to put it. Lucid wasn't even that bad, and Lucid was pretty bad with their pre-mapping, and that's a challenging section that a lot of cars typically lose points in, and that's probably where Kyle's Rivian lost points in that test, or the single point that it did lose. So that is, I don't know, unacceptable feels like a harsh word, but just it's crazy to me that a $25,000 Honda Civic has lane centering that works in that section, and this luxury truck that is nearing, actually this one is right about $100,000, doesn't. I personally give it a bit of a pass, because I, like I said, love driving this thing. Like, I could go with no driver's assistance, and I often do, because partially this pre-mapped issue. Even on a lot of our highways, notably up in Fort Collins, near Kyle, near the out-of-spec offices, we also don't have pre-mapping available because of construction.
Are you giving it a pass on the test, or are you giving it a pass on the vehicle as a whole?
Just like my personal, nothing to affect the score. It's just like, personally, it bothers me less because I like driving it.
Yeah.
And some of the same logic goes with Lucid. Like, because it's such an enjoyable car to drive, I'm okay without having lane centering. But in something like the VinFast, where it's like one of the worst driving experiences ever, I'm glad that car has lane centering. And that's another point. Rivian, how does a VinFast have lane centering everywhere and you don't? I can't wait for you to improve this. I know you will. And hopefully by R2, which is, I mean, Jess has her eyes on that.
You've got at least one customer if you get it right.
Yeah. So we're hopefully this is pretty balanced coverage, because Jess is here to counteract any sort of Tesla fanboyism, which I'm not a fanboy. I just appreciate a good product, and there's a lot of things Tesla does better than anyone. Fight me. But there's a lot of things they also clearly suck at. So, but driver assistance is one of them where they absolutely excel. We still, by the way, don't have highway assist. If I try to enable it, it says unavailable on this road. And so it only does the generic adaptive cruise control, which does slow down in the corners now. That is a thing that Rivian has added over an update, which is cool. So it's great to see them updating the systems, like I said, but we still have, no highway assist. If it doesn't give us the option the entire rest of the test, that's like, I don't even know. That's almost like a DNF, which we've never had to do in one of these.
Wow.
Which would be pretty bad.
You know, you did say I'm here to counteract the Tesla bias, but I think after experiencing FSD now in so many different situations with your Tesla, it's hard for me to understand the reason why other cars don't have it figured out yet. And I understand that obviously Tesla is, from a size and scale perspective, infinitely larger than Rivian, but the technology is there. It's hard for me, like you said, if there are other cars at a smaller capacity that are able to get it right, it's hard for me to support a car like Rivian that can. Yeah,
or at least you wish you could appreciate that about it. Like, there are so many reasons I do recommend Rivians to people, because they get software like almost perfectly right. Like, there's things about Rivian software that I like more than Tesla, and that's coming from someone who thinks Tesla has one of the best software experiences, which they do. The software looks gorgeous. They have a driver's display, which a lot of people in Teslas wish Teslas had. Well, specifically Model 3 and Y, which are the big sellers anyways. Even Cybertruck. And Cybertruck is something compared to Rivian fairly often. So it is nice to have all those things. The build quality, the fit and finish, everything feels great. I mean, that was your first thought when you got in this truck. You were like, damn, I love this interior.
Yeah, if I did not need FSD, which I don't, like, this would be a no-brainer purchase for me if I had $100,000. If I was buying a car for my mom, who needs a level of assistance, this would not be enough for her, I think.
And I think, you know, now that the new Model Y is unveiled and we have the Rivian R2 coming next year, like, it's easy for me to recommend Model 3. And it is easy to recommend Model Y, but it just doesn't feel special. Like, it is just a good car. It's a good appliance. And so I basically hope Rivian will spend the next year getting their driver's assistance nailed in, which, by the way, we still don't have it on this drive. It's been miles. I really hope that they can have it all done by R2 launch, because that will be like a mic drop moment on a car that I think will be very easy to recommend, because it is so cool, so much more character than Model Y. And selfishly, if you want to get one, then it's like, I hope it's better. Wow, that semi is really just leaving us in the dust. Still no highway assist. This is pretty bad. Side note, now if I try it, it says highway assist unavailable until your next drive. No idea why. That kind of is acting like an autopilot jail scenario, where it's like, oh, you were misusing it, you're now you're grounded. So what I'm going to try to do is get off at the next exit and just try to, like, power cycle the truck, basically turn it off, turn it back on again, see if that helps. Then we might even do like another loop here just really quick, not the whole route, just like part of it, just to see if that makes a difference. If it doesn't, then we know there's just a huge issue with this section of road, which is bad, because this is the section of road where we test everything. Okay, successful power cycle, looped back. Let's try this little section again here. Easing up to highway speed, clear on the left, and there it is. Nope, come on.
Oh.
There we go. Highway assist on, stay attentive. We are back in action. So yeah, I guess you just have to get out of the car, turn off, turn back on again. Solved.
I don't think we can give it a point for that, though. It still feels like, I don't know.
Something still feels...
Technically, it kind of is a DNF, a do not finish.
I mean, kind of. We did retest part of a BMW test one time because of sun glare, but that was sun glare. Oh, cool. It shows the lane with the yellow marking saying it's not safe yet. And now it should... There we go. Amazing. See, when it works, it's so good. We'll just have to see what happens with this construction zone. But it's just so good when it works, which makes my disappointment extra disappointing when it doesn't. Well, I can't get over, I say this every time, I can't get over the houses up here, like along this route. Like, imagine just living on that hill right there. Jeez. I am going to speed up to get past this truck really quick. It is interesting how Rivian clearly kind of took a page from Tesla's books with the steering wheel buttons, but on the driver's assistance side did it in the reverse. So the scrolling is actually follow distance, and then the left and right are speed, which is kind of interesting. So now that we're past them, we'll get back over to the left.
To the right.
Right? Other left? Thank you. And we should be seeing construction here in just a minute, which, if it kicks us off again, we'll honestly just take the first exit and just try to continue on and just live with the lack of points, which is, yeah. I mean,
which we're not giving it back any points if it does. Or do you want
no. I mean, it's still a failure. Like, I'm not going to undo those -5 because that was such an egregious failure. But I still want to give almost other cars the benefit of trying it in this section again, because basically a lot of cars lose points in this section, and if the Rivian just doesn't even test in this section, that's like not fair. So I'm really going to try to keep pushing it. That's the whole point, is finding the limits of the system when it is operational. And I'm just hoping it stays operational, but I don't know. We're coming up on the construction again. We'll see. Turn my heated seat on. Another thing I mentioned in the software video is I wish the Rivian had heated steering wheel in segments. No, well, not segments of the wheel, but like levels of heating. Some other companies and cars have that. All right, same sort of scenario. We'll see. I'm going to kick it off immediately. Like, maybe it tried to put us in the doghouse because I like let it go for so long and it was like, vehicle is shutting down. So I'm just going to check and see if it'll work up here soon again. But
I mean, the warning the first time you tried to re-engage it was just that it wasn't available.
Yeah.
And then it turned into not available until your next drive.
Yeah.
So I wonder if, like, trying to engage it too many times when it's not available, it's like...
Yeah, I wonder. I've never seen...
Like, you're trying too hard.
Well, but I've never seen that before, and I've done that. I've annoyingly... I've been on other... Oh, here we go. Okay,
Great.
That's really weird. Now it's working. That's great. Let's see if it stays working. So that was only a small little bit. Much better than Lucid in this run. But I'm still... we'll see what happens. But I'm just glad it's working now. But, like, I don't understand... Whoa.
Oh, okay.
It just gave up. Okay. So that would be...
It just really...
That would be a -1 for driver takeover for safety.
I mean, that was like... that wasn't just the takeover. It took a hard left towards the concrete barrier.
And it's funny because the truck itself was like, lane merge ahead. And I was like, cool, it knows that the lane to the right merges. But it thought we were in the lane that merged. So then it tried merging into a lane where it wasn't supposed to. Now we're back on the system. I'm glad it's working more this route than it should have, but it still failed back there. It does make it entertaining. I mean, were you bored in the FSD video? You were just like, there's nothing to really do.
It was too good for from a content perspective, so apologies if anyone thought it was boring. But I would say, from a driving perspective, behind the wheel, I would want my FSD to be as boring as possible.
Now, okay, so the Rivian thought we were in the right lane, even though we were in the left lane. And so when I tried to turn right to get in the next lane over, it wouldn't do it because it was like, no, you can't do that. There's a shoulder there. So... And
it's interesting because the graphics don't necessarily... The graphics are conflicting with what it's telling you, it looks like, maybe?
Oh, there we go. Back on. Here's usually a very challenging section. Well, the graphics were also showing me in the left lane, in the right lane, even though I wasn't. Oh, that's really close. I'm ready to take over. Yep, I'm taking over. So that'd be another point for the driver takeover for safety. It was just, and I think that's where Kyle's truck failed too. It's just like trying to go into the wall. Here's another place where it almost goes over, but not quite. It's slowing down in the corner, which helps it, but nope, we just crossed the line there.
Yeah.
So another point there. And see, this is why I wanted to really test it in this section, just to see what it's capable of. Some cars surprise us and like do insanely well, but this one is showing its limits for sure. But we are almost back to the turnaround point, and then hopefully it works on the way back, but definitely not the same showing as Rivian's first run with Kyle's truck, which is a bummer. It's hard to say why. Glad we're exiting, because it looks like traffic is... Alright, is it going to take the exit? Nope, that's good. So I will take the exit for it, and we'll turn it back around. Yeah, it says I-70 closed at Copper.
Yeah, I mean,
Wow.
that's a ways away, but...
Due to a crash, yeah, so good thing we're not trying to do a race to Vegas right now. Alright, we'll flip her around and see how it goes the other direction. Just very strange. I'm hoping Rivian looks at the logs, like, and maybe offers feedback. Like, that'd be a really special... Usually we just test these cars and, like, okay, it did what it did. But if Rivian could actually come out and let us know what happened, or, like, what faulted in the system, I mean, whether they let us know or not, fine. But, like, hopefully they analyze the data and use that to figure out what they could improve on. But it's just strange that a pre-mapped vehicle shows different behaviors in the same stretch of road. One time saying it was pre-mapped, one time saying it wasn't. So, I don't know. Still, in the grand scheme of things, though, as far as how many takeovers we've had, not bad at all. Like, the first, 75% of that stretch, we had no issues. That's still better than most cars. I still want to give them credit where credit is due. And now we're back on highway assist, which is great. So we'll see how it does in this section. Definitely a little bit of traffic, which won't hurt us. Take control of the vehicle. Road information unavailable.
Hey.
So, we'll just wait and see if it comes back available. So with that, I guess that would technically be the third one, the like -3, because that was the car giving up. But no, I guess you're right.
I gave you a warning.
Yeah, it gave you a warning.
Yeah.
So that was the second time it did that.
Yeah.
And still no. I was really hoping to test it through this section, because this is usually a pretty hard spot for a lot of vehicles, but nothing yet. So we'll just hopefully find another pre-mapped spot. It is definitely a nice truck to road trip. I've taken Rivians on multiple, drives to Vegas, and they ride pretty well. It is on air suspension. I sometimes wish the soft was a bit softer, because you do still feel somewhat too many of the bumps on the road. But I guess it is a balancing thing, because this truck is such a performance-minded truck. Like, you don't necessarily want a super wafty Mercedes-like ride.
Yeah.
It's not necessarily the target customer either. But otherwise, I mean, sound system that's one of the weaker points. It's passable at lower volumes, but when you really crank it, it really falls apart. And that's disappointing, because this is the elevation sound system. Like, this is supposed to be really high end, and we had high expectations because of the original Rivian Meridian system in Kyle's truck, which was fantastic. So we know it's possible, but it is interesting to see where Rivian may have cut some costs to ensure the company stays alive, which I appreciate, but also at the expense of certain items. But then they give us more powerful computers and better cameras, and so it's, you know, it's a bit of a wash in some ways. But it is interesting too. Like I said, the automatic turn signal cancellation is coming in a new update, but only to Gen 2 Rivians. I have no idea why it's not coming to Gen 1. That's a huge question in the Rivian community right now. Curious if anyone knows the answer. But all right, we're back on very clearly marked lane. It's frustrating to be a very clearly marked road and not have the option to do lane centering. But then again, we were just in a Honda Prologue, which had no lane centering anywhere, so take it with a grain of salt. If I try it, it says unavailable on this road. I'm not going to keep trying it in case that's what put me in jail last time. But I've angrily hit the stock many other times in many other drives, and it was fine. Like, it didn't enable, obviously, but it never put me in jail, for lack of a better term. So I guess we'll see. I'll just turn on. Oh, here we go. We are back online. Excellent. So just a huge section of construction where it just couldn't test it, which is such a bummer, because construction is a great place to test these systems with other cars too. That's like, you know, sometimes variation in the lanes, and sometimes old lanes were covered up and new lanes are made, and the cars sometimes get confused. So just disappointing that you can't test this in the whole place. But automatic lane change, phenomenal. Dang. When it works, it really works. That's like my final thoughts, unless anything else happens. So that's pretty much all the construction, which means pretty much all the drama. It got this far from the other direction without any issues.
Yeah.
So honestly, we're just gonna to keep this video not too long, we're just gonna let you guys know if anything else happens. All right, well, we just finished it, and as I suspected, no issues from way back there. Like, from the construction zone back to here, not a single disengagement. I didn't have to take over, no lane crossing, flawless. So that is like my final thought summed up, is like, when it works, it really works. Which makes me think, as soon as they unlock this thing to work anywhere, not pre-mapped highways, it's going to be one of the best systems out there. Up there with the likes of Tesla, which is, you know, with FSD on a league of its own. But Tesla without FSD is autopilot, and its autopilot is phenomenal. So that's Rivian's highway assist system. The total points, -4, which is really not amazing. But that score is with an asterisk. We have to find out what it does with the driver unresponsive situation. They can earn back points, go back to the land of the positive. There's definitely opportunities for them to improve with that regard, but as far as I know, there's just not a lot of features in here. You don't have like a lot of the things we give points for, like adapting the speed limits and everything automatically. It's just kind of a manual system, but when it works, it really, really, really works. What do you think?
I don't know. I think I disagree with you a little bit. Like, when it works, sure. But I think there were too many instances of it not working for me to buy this car, with the driving assist being a big part of the reason why I'm buying this car. Like, there are many other reasons why I would buy this car. The driver's assist is not one of them. If I had this car, I would probably never use it. Based on the test, I wouldn't trust it.
Yep.
Just too many things that went wrong for me to really feel like I could turn it on and put my faith in the system.
Yep. Yeah, I agree. I think, I don't know. I'm just kind of disappointed. Like, I'm so impressed when it does work, but you're right. If you're buying a car based on wanting a good driver's assistant, like if that's your buying decision, you're buying a Tesla, I think. So the cameras died because we had to redo half the test, but I also got more feedback from Rivian and Jess's final thoughts. She was overall impressed. I mean, we both were. When the system is on, it does so well. The tightest curves are when it finally gives up and cross the line, and so that's when it kind of falls apart. But also the pre-mapped issues make the system as it currently stands not a component to make a buying decision on. Jess said she really wants the Rivian R2, but honestly would pick Tesla or something at the moment if the ADAS doesn't drastically improve, because Tesla is so far ahead of pretty much all the other competition. At least here, not so much in China as we've seen with some of Kyle's videos rolling out and rolling out soon. But driving dynamics, adventure capability, materials, software, design, there's so many other reasons to pick Rivian, just not ADAS, not now. If you're buying a car for ADAS, Tesla, even Ford, even VinFast outperforms this, largely because this is just so limited. Pre-mapped highways are very limited to major highways, not even a lot of the B roads that Super Cruise, Pre-mapped, and Blue Cruise are extending themselves to, because they keep adding more and more pre-mapped roads beyond the major highways. And construction has made it thoroughly inconsistent and rough. Now, there are theories floating around that the pre-mapping connectivity issues that I saw or other people are experiencing could be related to the cellular connectivity of the trucks. Rivians use AT&T, as does Tesla. A few other cars do as well. It's pretty popular. And AT&T notoriously is rough in Colorado, but I think I've debunked this because it just seems to really cancel lane centering in the pre-mapped areas in construction areas. And that's even when the truck was showing that it had full bars of LTE. So I don't think it's that, but we still could do some testing in the future here. Maybe take a Starlink, have the truck connected to that, do the same type of route and see if anything changes. But for the future, Rivian has noted that they will have hands-free functionality sometime this year. Coming soon-ish. I don't know how soon. It could just be before the end of the year, but I'm sure that's also limited to pre-mapped. But if it is pre-mapped, it should be super confident, so it should be super good. And I hope the pre-mapping just gets better and better. They're most likely going to be using the camera in the rearview mirror for the driver monitoring. It's hard to notice, but I did see that in our Generation 2 R1 truck. It's hard to see, but if you look really closely and you have a Generation 2 R1, there it is. A driver-facing camera. And before the end of the year, Rivian should finally have non-pre-mapped capabilities. Now, I don't know how capable those capabilities will be or the limitations, probably limited to Generation 2 R1s, but we'll see if they bring anything to the first R1, which Kyle has. I'm just excited to see what happens. Of course, we'll be retesting the Rivian in the Hogback, hopefully with both of these upcoming updates, one with hands-free, as well as one with hopefully no pre-mapping needed. That would be awesome to test the driver's unresponsive situation without relying on Rivian to tell me what happens. And I'm curious to see if Rivian's R1 Gen 2 system with the upgraded hardware and computers and everything really heavily outperforms the first gen R1. Is it going to be like a Tesla situation where it's like hardware 4 versus hardware 3? Will Rivian even offer to upgrade old trucks, or is that just not even an option? Super curious. So let us know what you guys think. It's not the score I was hoping for, but other than the disengagements from construction zones, the truck performed very, very well. I mean, there was like basically one intervention, which is the same as Kyle's truck, if it weren't for all the pre-mapping canceling the system out entirely. So very few driver takeovers. It's important to take in the data with context. I'm excited and hopeful for future updates that it will improve even more. And maybe they'll even add more settings. Right now, the settings in the RAP Plus, Rivian Autonomy Platform Plus page is pretty limited. But what do you guys think? Let us know what else you want to see Rivian do in the future. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you around.